Okay, it's time for another book review, and this one is Project Open Mind: Are Some Alien Abductions Government Mind Control Experiments by Katharina Wilson. I looked this up after I found this the other day, and I cannot find this on Amazon at all. That's where I originally purchased this. But it was originally published in 1996, or no, I'm sorry, 1997. Looks like it's copyrighted 1996 and then published in 1997. But this is pretty fascinating. I originally got this because this particular author, Katharina Wilson, I have two of her other books. She has one that's her kind of plain vanilla, I hate to say it that way, but it's her abduction accounts as an abductee. She claimed that she was abducted by aliens and presented her case as such. Then Martin Cannon's work came out and got a lot of people looking into their own experiences, and that prompted her to write this. And this is excellent material. She approaches this as someone who experienced the alien abduction, phenomenon firsthand, and she again is approaching this as someone who has experienced this, but then as someone who is also critically analyzing her own experiences and rethinking a lot of her own experiences. And she breaks this down really well. She has a timeline of some of the kind of key UFO events all the way up to 1980. And then she goes into part two is the technology, and she starts getting into a brief history of electronic stimulation of the brain. And I'm going to read a section out of that here in just a minute, but lots of really good research in here. And the fascinating thing is you have this being researched from the perspective of someone who has experienced this and is now critically analyzing their own experience. And those of you who followed my channel for a while know about my my pet hypothesis about the UFO and abduction phenomenon and that sort of thing. I have what I call the magic show hypothesis, which I'm sure is not unique to me except just applying that name to it. And my point in that hypothesis is, typically the general public approaches the phenomenon of alien abductions or UFOs or whatever as a very binary situation, as they're either they really experienced it and it's true, or they're making it all up, or they're delusional and it's false, and that's it. Those are the two choices. Full stop. And I would like to offer up a third option in that it would be the magic show hypothesis, where if you take a child who has just been to a big illusion show, and you ask them what they saw, and you say, "Hey, little Billy, what'd you see?" He's going to describe some of the tricks he saw in the magic show, and he's going to tell you how he saw a woman cut in half and put back together again. She got out of the box, walked around, everything was fine. Now, is Billy lying to you? No, he's not lying. He's telling the truth. He's saying exactly what he saw happen in front of him on stage. Now, so he's not lying, but also, did a woman actually get cut in half? No, a woman did not get cut in half. It's an illusion. The whole thing was a trick. So Billy is telling you what he believes he objectively viewed and what he believes he experienced. But it's actually completely false. And that's where things get very complicated with regards to the UFO phenomenon and the abduction phenomenon and all that. Because if there is deliberate trickery, if there is a deliberate effort to deceive someone, then you could have someone report what they believe to be true, what they experienced, and that experience is a complete fabrication. And it's through no fault of their own. They're telling you what they experienced, and they do not realize that their experience has been tampered with. So anyway, I know that's a more than you probably wanted to hear about that. But that's kind of my working idea about a lot of the UFO phenomenon, about the psychological warfare aspect of that, and how that can be used to exploit and create belief systems. So anyway, so Katharina Wilson does a great job of critically analyzing her own experience, and she's somewhat of an agnostic on this. She throws out 3 different scenarios that she says these could all be true, or one of any of these could be true. And as she points out in here, and not a one of them are a good scenario. None of these realities are realities that we would really want. And the way she describes is, one, it could be aliens abducting. I'm sorry, I should back up a little bit. She's talking about the human element of alien abductions, where a lot of abductees have reported there being human involvement, and literally like being taken by military personnel into a plain van and driven somewhere, or seeing very prosaic technology involved in this, helicopters and that sort of thing. And she proposes 3 options. Is one, aliens are using mind control or whatever to make you think that humans are abducting them. And then 2, that humans are abducting abductees after they're abducted by aliens to like follow up on them and check them out. And then the 3rd alternative is there's no aliens, it's all humans. And like she points out, there's not a one of those that's none of those are good options, but those are the options. And she is, like I said, the way she presents this as the jury is out, but she does a great job of saying, here's the technology, here's the history of mind control programs. And she even points out that she herself, when she first ran into the mind control angle, she found that totally absurd. And she even points out that she, in retrospect, it's kind of funny that here she is believing she's been abducted by aliens, but she believes that someone who believes that they were abducted by the US government is complete fantasy. And she points out that irony, anyway, so she does a great job of breaking that all down. If you can find this is a great resource. And she has, like I said, I believe 2 other books, and time permitting, I might tonight go and see if I can find some of them and do a quick video about it. But this one is, to me, the most important, just because this is her really stepping back from her own experience and looking at it much more objectively. So again, this is kind of little Billy. He's been to the magic show, and now he's backing off going, well, wait a second, what exactly did happen in that magic show? So excellent book if you can find it. And there's a lot of really interesting research that she's citing. And a lot of this, she's citing other people like Walter Boart of Operation Mind Control fame, and Martin Cannon. So she cites a lot of prominent authors and, reputable, good, solid sources on this. So I'm curious what she's up to today now, because this, now being, coming up on 30 years, it'd be interesting to see where she stands on some of this now. And she also brings up Karla Turner, which many of you know from her most prominent, well-known work is Into the Fringe. But she mentions Karla Turner, and Karla Turner piecing together that there was this human element to a lot of this. But in this section 1 she has on electronic stimulation of the brain, I'm just going to read this because this I really think is worth some serious, deep research in this vein. She says, in 1928, scientists discovered what they called a violence center in the hypothalamus of the brain. They found that when the posterior region of the hypothalamus in an animal's brain was destroyed, the animal remained in a permanent state of rage. Soon, scientists discovered that instead of destroying this area of the hypothalamus, all they needed to do was stimulate it to produce the same effects of rage and violent behavior. Then came the invention of thin needle-like electrodes that could be inserted into any part of the brain without causing permanent damage. scientists discovered that they could connect these brain stimulators to an apparatus which would enable the animal to stimulate its own brain. Obviously, when the animals were given a choice, they preferred to stimulate other areas of their brain, such as the pleasure centers rather than the violence or pain centers. The interesting thing about that is, with a lot of the advent of ISIS a few years back and a lot of the weird stuff that came out with that, some of you who were following a lot of the stuff that was happening in Syria, I'm curious if anybody else remembers this. There was a point where when the Russians went into to fight ISIS in Syria on behalf of the Syrian government, they started confiscating a lot of U.S.-made weapons, and there was a lot of like, gee, where'd that come from? And one of the things that came out in, I believe is Anna, it was a foreign news outlet, and that they had confiscated a shipping container of psychotropic meds that were being given to these ISIS fighters. So, and again, this is probably, the sad thing is now with YouTube's being what it is now, a lot of these interviews, a lot of these news stories, I'm pretty sure Anna News has been wiped from YouTube. But there was a lot of those original interviews and things in the foreign press where they interviewed ISIS fighters, and they were talking about that they were being medicated to go into battle and that they would lose their minds, and which, hence a lot of the atrocities. And now we have similar stories that trickle out of Ukraine, where some of the Russians have reported seeing Ukrainians with limbs blown off that are just wandering around the battlefield in a daze like zombies because of some of the drugs they're on. So there's very much a pharmaceutical side to warfare and to making people be more efficient killers and less reluctant killers by way of medicine. So anyway, excellent book if you can find this. The other interesting thing about this is of course, excellent bibliography. Some of the endnotes in this alone are worth digging into. A great list of mind control information. So anyway, if you can find it, and I'll have to look again on the Amazon and see if this is out there. And who knows, maybe Katharina Wilson, if she has a website or something, maybe she's got this as a PDF or something to download. But a lot of solid research in this. And again, I'd be really curious now, some 28 years later or so, what her temperature is on all this stuff. So anyway, excellent book. Project Open Mind: Are Some Alien Abductions Government Mind Control Experiments by Katharina Wilson. And all told, this works out to right at about 100 pages. So again, excellent book if you can find it.